I get by Yahoo every year. Like, and he scores 33 on the first night.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I said, you're welcome for the motivation, mother.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues Basketball Podcast, another week. And just a reminder, we'll be going every 2 weeks from here on out, much to Pro's disdain, but that's what we'll be doing. First NBA week in the books, a lot of news, Pro, to get through. What's going on? You been watching some games?
Yeah. First week was pretty interesting. Watched the Lakers a couple of times, Celtics, Spurs, Pacers, bunch of teams. Yeah, it's first week. It's typical. You get your Philly drama, you get all this stuff going. So it's always interesting to listen to.
Yeah, it's always hard to gauge the honeymoon period, as we call it. Everyone's unless you're the Bulls, which we'll get into a little bit in a second. But for the most part, it's a honeymoon period for everyone. Everyone likes each other. We need a couple of losing road trips and long road trips and guys' bodies hurting until you see the real true colors of most teams. But let's just open with the Viewership Pro. Our good friend Strauss in the group chat we're in, he's big on this stuff, and an interesting disparity in the reporting of the viewership. Tuesday opening night doubleheader on TNT averaged 2.78 million viewers. The least watched opening night in 9 years and the second worst in 15 years, Pro. But we know the NBA loves good PR, and a day later, they've now said the first 3 nights of the NBA season averaged 2.57 million viewers across TNT and ESPN, up 13% from last year and the highest 3-night average since 2017, Pro. So it's not like the NBA to have a bad opening night and then put out a PR puff piece, but our friend Strauss kind of has it right to an extent. He's claiming that viewership's dropping, and will the NBA have that open bag of money come another year or two's time negotiating a broadcast deal?
Bogues, I tend never, ever, ever to fucking believe any poll that's given or any stat that's given as far as that stuff's concerned. It's always like you hear a stat and then you're like, oh, wow, that's great. And then there's 5 other stats on the internet that just basically goes against what you just read, and you don't know what to believe. It's so much misinformation on stuff, and I don't care what the news source or the source of the information is. I'm always a little wary of it. What do you think? Do you think that the viewership is truly down? You think it's truly up? I know what you probably think, but like, what do you think of all this stuff? I don't pay attention to it as much as you and Strauss does, but I do see some things here and there, but again, like, how much on the internet do you believe? How much on social media do you believe? Well, how much on these other sources do you believe?
It is hard. I think the opening night was against the baseball conference finals. Is that correct? I don't know.
I believe so.
Yeah, so they're going against other sports that are at the tail end of their season. The thing with the NBA is, and Strauss and other people want to compare it to the NFL. The NBA is a global game. NFL not as much, but you factor in China, you factor in India, you factor in the Philippines, Europe, even Australia to an extent, a smaller population, but a lot of people pay for a league pass in Australia legally, unlike a lot of other countries. Yeah. But I think the NBA is fine from that aspect, but we're talking about more, I guess, the broadcast rights. That's what's inflated this CBA to having Jaylen Brown be paid $69 million in the final year of his deal. A huge part of that is because of the broadcast revenue coming in. Is that sustainable? I don't think so. I don't think you can keep paying players, 70 and that 5 years time that goes up to 80. Like that kind of money is insane per year, right? So I think that's going to eventually balance out, plateau a little bit, and maybe even come back down. But I think, where I disagree with Strauss a little bit is I think the NBA, as the NFL and sports in general, they're the last beacon of live advertising, right? Like, so if you're watching Netflix, if you're watching YouTube, if you're watching whatever, if you're watching, things on delay, you can fast forward through the ads, you can skip the ads, you can buy the premium service. So advertisers, that pisses them off, right? Because they're not able to force feed you what they're advertising. If you're watching something that's live, you can't fast forward through the shit. So you have to watch the ads. You have to watch the shit that pops up. So it's still very valuable from that aspect of broadcast when you factor in the advertising. So do I see it going downhill quick? No. Do I see streaming services paying for it? No, I think that's a bit of fluff to get their value up. I think ESPN and the NBA need each other. They need each other Same as ABC, TNT. They need each other, and it's the last beacon of live advertising. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I do agree that these numbers being thrown around because of future broadcast projected deals, there has to be a ceiling to that shit eventually.
If you're Bezos and like Amazon, do you not care to a certain degree with how much money he has on top of like just wanting that broadcast rights just for Amazon's, power, however they have to acquire it? Would you be hot to trot, even if the numbers are just okay, just to get the broadcast rights? Because obviously we're seeing that a little bit in football where they've got a bunch of games on their package. I mean, if you're Amazon, do you just say, the hell with it, I'm just going after it, regardless of what my numbers are telling me? I mean, these numbers you're seeing with the next deal is insane. And what it's going to do to inflate salary to max contracts and things like that, and minimum contracts. We're at 10 million now. I mean, imagine that new money coming into the BRI, what that's going to do to a max contract. Like a first max contract's like 30 some odd $1 million a year. I mean, that's probably going to bring that into the 40s, close to on the first max contract. And then that minimum salary, I mean, that average salary is going to go from like 10 million, I don't know, what, 13, 14 million bucks for an average player, and like an average player salary. That's insane. But
and your max,
I don't know
is
how
going to push hundreds. Your super max.
Yeah,
you guys
the super max. Yeah,
4-year, 390 million. Like it's just
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Does Amazon go all out? I don't know what Bezos' position is on that. I haven't read too much into it. But then, there's murky waters if they're exclusive to Amazon. Amazon's running through the app. What happens to the NBA League Pass app? If that does happen though, Pro, I think it's a death. I mean, we're already seeing a slow death of cable TV and subscription services as far as cable goes. But it's going to be the death of those companies, and ESPN's going to be in big trouble with that. Disney's taking a huge shit. They're doing horribly as far as a Disney product. So ESPN's really their only last branch that's still doing well in that company right now. It's a whole story for another day with all the kid stuff they're putting out that's become political and whatnot, people turning off and parents cutting the cord off Disney. But yeah, it's very, very interesting to see where it goes. I kind of follow it just to see because it has ramifications on player salary and cap. But we'll continue to watch this space. I just like the fact that the NBA put out probably the first time in NBA history they've put out a 3-day viewership.
I think they're doing anything. I think they're doing anything to push,
of course,
positivity for this money to this new. I mean, why wouldn't they? Right?
Of course,
that's their biggest piece of revenue that they have in the BRI, right? Like so. Yeah,
it's like you said, it's like our highest rating Monday in 2023.
On an odd year.
Yeah, on a leap year. We've never seen these numbers before. But anyway,
trust me, they're not relying. The BRI is not relying on fucking Washington's fucking ticket sales. So they need this TV deal.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. 100%. But I think, I still think even with an average deal from the American side of broadcasting and apps, they'll be fine just because you're not factoring in China, you're not factoring in the rest of the world and all that. So they'll be okay. No team of the week this week. We're going to let things just settle because, it's a honeymoon period. So we want to
3 games in.
Yeah, really want to get into the grind. We'll see how that goes. Moving on to some news. 10-day absence for James Harden to date. He's now wanting to report back because he's obviously going to get fined and whatnot. And they told him to stay home and probably get in shape. That's probably the right decision as far as Philly goes. Nothing really changed over there as far as getting something done, you think, Pro?
Bogues, as this soap opera keeps on coming in, if you're the other teams trying to get him, look, he's like John Wall. He's sort of like this year's John Wall, right? No one really wants him, at his number with the drama that goes with him. There's a couple of teams, obviously the Clippers being one of them. And I think that this hurts. I think the more that he's out, the more drama that's with it. I think that, teams aren't going to be as like LA's probably going to be, hey, look, we're going to draw this thing out because LA's going to be good anyway. So I think Harden's good, even though he doesn't put up great numbers in the playoffs. I think that they're going to be like, look, the more this goes on, the less we have to give him in this deal because they're going to, the only issue though with Philly is they're playing great without him. So, as far as like what you see in the game, I don't think this deal is going to be pushed anytime soon. I think it's going to be a little while. That being said, it'll probably be done tomorrow if I'm saying it's not. But what do you see? What do you see in that, Bogues?
Oh, it's the stalemate. They need him to be in shape as well, obviously, before they put him out on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So whether he plays, do you think he plays it? Do you think he suits up for Philly this season? Actually, suits up for a game. Suits up and plays. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
My gut's telling me that they're going to come to a stalemate, and then like if it's not done in another week or 10 days, they're going to be like, "Hey, look, we want you out. We want you out of here, but you need to bring in value. So we need you to play. We need to put up numbers, and then we get you out." I think he plays for Philly, and then I think he'll probably get moved. Now, does he get moved to the Clippers? I don't know. Does another team? Kendrick Perkins. I don't tend to quote Perk that often, but he did say something that was marginally, made sense. That maybe the Lakers wait until December 15th and you could deal D'Angelo Russell, and maybe he goes to the Lakers. I mean, imagine putting AD. Now, LeBron and him will be interesting with two guys that need the ball, but it gives them another guy that gives them a little more than Russell. So maybe the Lakers are another team, but I think he plays for the Clippers. I think he plays for Philly, and I think they ramp him up a little bit, and then they work out some type of a deal. I do think he'll play for Philly. What do you think?
Yeah, he has to. I think eventually he has to. It's just a matter of time because you can't keep stalemating this. I've also seen a few people, I think Perkins, a few other people have also said he's got to be careful that he's not the next Carmelo Anthony. And I kind of said that about a month ago that, you start doing this stuff too much, all of a sudden you've got that stain on your name, that label. Young teams aren't going to want to bring you in, because we don't want that poison around young guys. Middle tier teams are like, maybe it puts us over the top, maybe it doesn't. And then your top end championship aspirations are like, is he going to take a role? So you don't want to be that guy, and I think that's a valid point. So we'll watch that space, but I hope to see him on Philly to play just to see where that roster is. I mean, Philly looked okay today, but that stalemate, that relationship isn't getting repaired overnight. Pro, our first non-binary referee. Did you celebrate that momentous day in NBA history, Pro?
Bogues, you know me and the whole first person to do this or first team to do this. I'm not a fan of it as far as that's concerned. Hey, look, if you're not, all I care about is, do you know what the defense of 3 seconds is? You're going to call the charge versus block. Do you know what a foul is? Do you know how to call a travel? You know what I want to see? I want to see the first non-binary referee in 10 years. I want them to say, you know what? 10-year anniversary of boom. I'm okay with that. Longevity things I'm okay with. I don't really care about anytime a stat comes up or a thing comes up, the first this person or the first team to do this, I tend to roll my eyes at it. So I don't really care either way. Doesn't really affect my day. How about you, Bogues?
It doesn't affect my day. I just think it's a pointless thing to announce. Like someone's sexuality related to whether they coach, play, ref is just absolutely stupid in my opinion, because we're not have we polled all the other referees, Pro, and asked them who they like to bang and what they like to do and who they like to date and how they feel sexually? No, we probably haven't, and we shouldn't. It's no one's business. I get it. There's people saying that, it's part of normalizing this kind of stuff so they don't get bullied and that we see more people, that other trans people can now feel comfortable coming out. Totally get that, but I just don't think we want to be in a point in society where, what you're doing in the bedroom or what you identify as sexually needs to be the first thing that's celebrated. I think celebrate that you're a great referee, and then if something else comes out of that interview that, oh wow, non-binary also cool, but that's the first thing, and leagues all around the world and people all around the world are so desperate for all this PR stuff around this kind of sexuality stuff, and I think it's just gone over the top. That's my opinion. I don't know if people disagree with it, but I just thought it was a nothing burger and it's no one's business. But Shea Flores, now Shea is one letter away from having the first name she, so close miss there when you come non-binary.
There's another first. That could be another first.
Yeah. So, but all the best to her. Like Pro said, as long as you can referee, I don't think people really care too much that that you're non-binary or whatever sexuality you are. So good luck to Shea, the Chicago Bulls pro, quickest player-only meeting in NBA history. Has to be the quickest. One game in, lost to the Thunder, players-only meeting, pro. Their season started officially.
Season officially starts, as I like to say, Bogues. You don't start an NBA season until it's a players-only meeting. Bogues, you know my feelings on this. I don't think anything ever gets done in a players-only meeting. I don't think players ever tell the truth. I think, very rarely it's all lip service. I think it's just they just do it to do it. And I don't know how much you want to get ironed out one game in. I mean, what can you possibly do? Doesn't look great for Billy Donovan if they're having a players-only meeting in one game where, like, they're going to, you know what that goes, especially on bad teams. They're not a good team. They aren't. They're a collection of players. They're not a team. And you know how it's going to go. They're going to throw him under the bus at some point if they don't get it rectified. But one game in, come on, man. I mean, I think the hijinks has to stop at some point and just man the fuck up and play and just figure some things out. But what are your thoughts? I mean, you've been through it a lot. I'm sure you've been in a few of those. What do you think about these player-only meetings? And then obviously how quickly it was done. What do you think?
Oh, how quickly it's done is ridiculous. I mean, you just got out of training camp and you're already having a players-only meeting. I mean, they're not really picked to do much anyway. They have some good veteran players. Levine obviously had a 50 ball with no assists, I think, which is something you don't see very often. But yeah, I
you don't.
I don't like their squad anyway. I didn't think they were going to be very good. But yeah, it's going to scapegoat the coach. I mean, they're going to go after the coach, and this is looking horrible for the coach. That one game in, they're already doing this because the front office is going to be like, "Hang on, what's the coach doing? What's going on?" I've had these meetings. I agree with you, pro. I think for the most part, if they don't end up in blows, there's not a lot of truth in them, and guys aren't going to say what they really feel because they're scared of that it ends up in blows, and it ends up being a bitch session about the coaches mainly, the ones that I've been involved in, where I'm getting screwed or you're getting screwed. Oh yeah, man. Well, if coach did this for you, I'd look better, and then we'd look better, and then it ends up being a party of parody players just trying to, agree with each other that coach sucks. There's usually some players that will remain completely silent and not say anything, and then there's ones that talk a lot and want to fight anyone that disagrees with them. So they are pretty pointless for the most part, but it's just interesting that it happened one game in. So we'll watch that space, but we're both not high on the Bulls for numerous reasons. They'll win a little bit of games, but I think they'll be scratching. Maybe they get in a plane if they're lucky, but other than that, I don't think they're going to be very, very good. The All-Star game is back, pro. Is that the news we've had today? Non-binary ref, exciting news. All-Star game is back. I bet you're excited for that one, pro. It's back to the East versus West. 4 full quarters, no shenanigans, no bullshit. We're just going to play a proper basketball game. Surely that changes all the negativity around the All-Star game.
Of course. And that, I mean, instead of texting me Team Giannis score versus Team LeBron score, you could just text me East versus West score, because I don't care either way. I think the All-Star game is done and over and buried. I don't think there's anything you can do to it. But hey, going back to East versus West, awesome. And the only good thing is you don't have this fake-ass draft that you have, and, players' feelings being spared, and then you have to interview the player about how do you feel about getting drafted this pick or that pick. And then this player won the MVP and he was only drafted this. It's never ending. So at least you go back to, East versus West. So yeah, I don't care either way, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I just think it shows they're clutching at straws. Like they're trying to figure out, how can we fix things? How can we do this? How can we do that? But it just, going back to the old way, does it change much? No. I mean, until the game's somewhat taken seriously and matters, I think it's not going to matter to the fans. Like, why would it matter to me as a basketball fan if it doesn't matter to the players? You're basically watching obviously like an all-star game, exactly that. It's just crap. And I think, you don't blame the players. There's not a whole lot of incentive for those games. Maybe you just announce the all-star, this is our all-star 12, and you don't play the game. That's more the guys like the all-star part of things because of contracts, because of bonuses, because of the, you hold yourself in high esteem that you're an all-star. I don't think the game matters at this point. So I wouldn't be I would not be worried whatsoever if they didn't even have it at all. But we'll see. We'll see how they push it. We'll also see how this NBA tournament goes as well. You know,
They're pushing that tournament hard.
They are, and I'm not
every telecast.
Yeah, we went high on the play-in, and I wasn't at least, and I eat my words. I think it's been a great thing. The tournament, I don't know. I just can't see it being that good.
Bogues, I think that what they're going to do, and I think Silver will push this probably as much as he's pushed anything else that he's done on the players. Where look, we really need this with the revenue. We could sell this to I don't even know. I'm just sort of spitballing here, but we could sell this as an additional package to the BRI, to another a streaming service or what have you. Going forward, this could be big. We got to have everybody's attention on this. And I don't know how much that's going to go. Although I forgot about the money they're paying, Bogues. What are they paying each player? Have you heard that? What they're paying each player for this?
No, is
for the winner? It's not. It's pretty high.
It's like $1 million.
It's not low for sure.
For the winners or something like that? Was it $500,000 to $1 million or something for the winners?
Something like that. I mean, it makes a difference to some players, but they'll push it. I don't know how much they'll actually care. They're not really adding games to the season to it, so. I don't know. I mean, even with this injury stuff, Bogues, sitting out versus not, teams are going to get cute with that, where they're going to say things about, sitting out versus not. I think that the first year, the regular season games, the pool games leading into it may not be exciting. Maybe the first round of games will be. I think the finals and semifinals for this will be pretty exciting. I think that they'll make sure it's ramped up a little bit. I think there's going to be a all hands on deck meeting about this heading into it and saying, hey guys, we got to sell this. We got to sell it.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see just another, it's going to take some time. If it does become good and people like it, it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 years away, but it feels very, football or soccer-ish to me, which is not the NBA of the past or what the NBA is about, but they do need to find some meaning out of the regular season, which we've spoken about. The amount of regular season games, a lot of these games don't matter. A lot of them aren't competitive. So this might be the formula that at least gives some sort of competitiveness mid-season. So we'll see how that goes. Aussies in the NBA Pro, real quick. Just go through some stats. Dyson Daniels, decent start. 4 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1 steal per game. But, 30% from the field and 0 from 3. Hasn't knocked a 3 down yet. And we spoke about that. He's got to knock one of those down and get more minutes in that rotation. Josh Green, decent week, 9 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 2 steals per game, and 40% from 3. So a very solid week for Josh, obviously being that role player, and got his extension, I think 3 years and the $40 million. So congratulations to him. Joe Ingles, ice cold still, 16.5 minutes, no points yet to score this season in 2 games, 0 for 4 from the field, but did have a decent game assist-wise last game, but ends up finishing with 2.5 rebounds and 3 assists per game over 2. Jock Landale played 1 game, 3 points in 8 minutes, concussion protocol for him, got a head knock. He's out I guess day to day, but didn't play today in their 3rd game, so should play in their 4th, I believe. I spoke to him about it. Doesn't think it's too serious, but they do take that pretty seriously now in the NBA, as they should. They don't let you come back too early. Patty Mills, 0 minutes over 2, nothing to talk about there. Hasn't played yet. Actually over 3. They just finished their game against Milwaukee. Didn't even get in garbage time there, unless he gets in the next minute or 2 of that game, which is as we speak. Matisse Thybulle, they're playing right now. They're getting punched by Philly. 3.5 points, 1.4 rebounds, and 1.7 steals. So not great numbers. He's 38 from 3 at the moment. But sorry, that was last season. He was 38 from 3. But yeah, not great numbers at the moment. Josh Giddey, 9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Real slow start for Josh Giddey. Not shooting great clips at the moment, but not a lot of ball now with Chad and obviously SGA. So he's going to have to find himself in spurts where he's going to find other ways to get involved. And Pro, we spoke about it last week on Fact or Fake News. Our Aussie of the week is Ben Simmons, and Bogus. Call me Bogus, but he had an almost triple-double week. He had 7 points a game, 8.5 assists, 10 rebounds, 1 steal, 1.5 blocks, 50% from the field. But one thing he didn't do, Pro, what was that?
Get to the free throw line?
Correct. So that's still, something that we need to see. And I think, not being negative or casting shade at him, once he gets over that line of getting there and knocking them down consistently, which he didn't really do in the preseason neither, I think the 7 points goes to 13, 14 potentially. I think he can double his score once he becomes comfortable with getting fouled. One other note, Pro, a lot of those minutes were at the 5 spot. So he's getting a steady diet of playing the 5 in their rotation. Now Claxton is out hurt. They don't have a lot of bigs. Mm-hmm. Claxton's coming back, and I've seen Jock Vaughan talking about, he got asked about how do you play Ben when Claxton's back? And he said, that's a good question. We need to figure it out because there's a lot of space out there right now with Ben at the 5. So I think you're going to see Ben playing a lot of 5 this season in those small ball lineups, and I think it suits him. It negates his that he's not a jump shooter, but he's had a pretty good start to the week, so it's good to see him out there, Pro. And he gets our first Aussie of the week.
Well, you said that maybe 2 years ago about he'll be better served playing the 5. You were the first guy that I heard say it, and it makes sense. You could be a playmaker out of the short roll, and now I don't think that it'll be interesting if he's in the short roll. How much do teams rotate when they put 2 on the ball, hit him, and he's playmaking? They know that someone's going to have to foul him. You're going to let him shoot that little 15-foot jumper. If he gets to the rim, you foul him. But if you over-rotate to him, he hits the guys in the corners for spot ups. It'll be interesting, but I think he could be very well served in that, in that situation, because in pick and roll coverage, he'll switch. So someone else will take the big. It ain't going to be him. So it'll be like, it's not like they're going to pound it inside and take advantage of him not being that strong. But
he's quick. I think
he's going to have to play.
Decently strong, Pro. Bar maybe Embiid or Jokic, he's quick and strong enough to guard most bigs, right? You've only got a few that are really bulky that are going to back you down and punish you. But I think it's a no-brainer, and I like it. I like what they're doing there. I compare it a little bit to Draymond Green to an extent. Draymond can play the 5 for stretches. There's no reason why Ben Simmons can't. Now Draymond's, a better shooter or more confident and okay getting to the line, so a bit more not afraid to get there. But yeah, it just comes down to Ben. Like we said, if he knocks down a couple of free throws and then you have him at that 5 spot, you can't just go to the hacker. I think it creates some issues defensively for other teams, especially if Ben's handling in the pick and roll and coming off screens and trying to facilitate for other guys. So it's good to see him start well, and let's hope that continues. But I like the adjustment of having him at the 5. And just a small tidbit, Jack White was taken number 1 in the G League draft after a trade. He ends up with, but he's gone to the Lakers, I believe, in a trade. So Texas drafted him, and he's gone to South Bay, and will be playing for the Lakers. So that's good to see. So he's staying there. From what I understand, Xavier Cooks is not going to be back in the NBL this season. Stranger things have happened, but I believe he's not going to come back. I think he's going to stay in the G League NBA route or potentially go to Europe. So for everyone wondering about that, that's kind of my mail on that. Moving on to Dabble, the social betting experience. You can follow anyone from your best mate all the way to me, Andrew Bogut, all one word. Give me a follow on there, copy bets, jump into the banner channel, talk some shit with other punters. Download the app and have a dabble. Dabble socially and gamble responsibly. Stats, useful or useless, got a few this week, Pro. We'll start off with this one. See if you know these. Let's see if you know your Australians in the NBA, Pro. Regular season games played, regular season, not finals, regular season games played in the NBA by Australians by team. Which team do you think has the most Australian that have played for it per game, regular season?
Overall or this season?
Yeah, overall. NBA history. The teams that have the most
NBA
Australian
history.
games played. Australian players playing in games.
I'm going to say, well, I'll go Milwaukee.
Milwaukee's up there. Obviously, good guess because I played 500-600 there. But
I was going to say either Dallas or Milwaukee, but Milwaukee.
Dallas. Chris Anstey?
They were it?
No. So number 1 is the Spurs.
Oh, yeah.
Paddy Mills and Andrew
Yeah.
Gaze was there. I think they've
Gaze
had
was there.
Aaron Baines counts for double when he was there with Paddy. So they've had a few there. Shane Hill, I think, had a little stint there as well. I don't know how long he lasted, but he was there. Number 2, Utah Jazz. So Joe Ingles, Dante Exum. Anyone else I'm forgetting there? I think it's those two. I think it's just those two. Milwaukee Bucks, myself, Joe Ingles. I think he's the only two. And Daly was there for a little bit of a stretch. Philly, number 4, Ben Simmons, obviously. Chicago Bulls, Luke. Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously Daly. But yeah, the Spurs had 883 for those wondering. Utah, 805. Milwaukee, 746. And then there's been a few that haven't had any. So they are the Memphis Grizzlies, the Clippers, the Pacers, and someone else that's on the bottom of my list that I cannot read.
They had a chance to take. The Clippers had a chance to keep Ingles. He was in. They invited him to a train a free agent camp.
No, he was in the training camp
right there.
It was true. He was in training camp, bro. Yeah, he was in
training camp.
Actual training camp. He made the cut to the actual training camp day squad, and then they cut him right towards the end of that. He was almost on a plane back to Europe, and then Utah called and brought him in, and he's ended up being $100 million player. So sliding
Those fucking
doors.
training camps.
Sliding doors.
A little training camp story, Bogues. Ben Wallace, before he got into the NBA, was in the Boston Celtics training camps or summer camps 3 times, and they cut him 3 fucking times. A Hall of Famer. He cut him 3 times because Patino thought if he was going to make it, he was going to be a small forward. Imagine that. Imagine having a guy in. But Ingles, come on now, guys got size, he could pass, lefty, tough. Why wouldn't you keep him? It's interesting.
Especially back then, the Clippers were desperate for a wing. They had Chris Paul and JJ Redick, and Matt Barnes was the other guy that they had, but they were desperate for another 3-point shooting wing. And I think they went and got, was it Jeff Green? They went and got someone. No. It was Wes Johnson, I think, right?
Wesley Johnson.
You could have had Joe Ingles. That would have been a much better fit. Wes Johnson a bit more athletic, but not as good a shooter, not a playmaker. All of a sudden, you can take CP out, move Ingles. But that was an interesting one when they let him go. I thought he'd been really useful for him. But give me a useful or useless first one of the year, pro.
What's up?
Useful or useless?
Oh, for that? Useful. For that, useful, for sure.
Yeah, useful. I like it.
Fucking
I like it.
Gaze.
It's just good to know.
I forgot that. I got San Antonio had Gaze. Man, useful.
Well, but Gaze playing for the Spurs is used very loosely because there wasn't a lot of playing. It was a lot of sitting.
He was there.
He had the snap.
He was
had
there.
the pants on. He was there. He got the best seat in the house. But I think
just like this fucking podcast. I'm here. I don't participate, but I'm here.
No, you're here. You're on video now. We're getting a lot of feedback. But Gaze played more games for Washington, I believe. So played actual games for.
I thought he was Seattle too, right? He was Seattle too, wasn't he?
No,
Gaze was never Seattle.
No. He was
Okay.
he was with Washington when they were the Bullets. So Seattle, no. Seattle had an Australian player? I don't think they have. I know Shane Hill was Minnesota, and anyway, we move on. All right, here's one for you. Most games with 25 points on 70-plus field goal percentage over the last 15 seasons. Who do you think would lead that, bro? 25-plus points.
Last 15.
Last 15 seasons. 25 over 25 points, shooting 70% over the last 15 seasons. Who would have the most?
Whew. Bogues, I'm going to guess Dwight Howard.
Good guess. 54. Yep. Number 2.
Oh,
current player.
not
a big, not a paint playing big.
Not a paint playing big. 70%. 70%. Not
actually
a big.
Quite amazing. This guy's in there to me, just because he shoots a lot of middies.
I'm gonna guess Sean Marion.
The current player, you donkey.
Oh, current player. I'm sorry. Bogues, I don't know, man. I got nothing for you.
Kevin Durant. That's amazing because he shoots a lot of tough shots. So to have him had another one the other night, he's at 48 times, so he's going to break Dwight's record, I believe. But 48, shooting over 70% with 25 plus points, that's impressive for a guy of his magnitude. Now I can understand Dwight. Giannis is 47. I can understand him. and LeBron's 46, you can understand him because they're real heavy paint guys, right? And they get to the free throw line.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. That's amazing. So he's 8th all time in such games.
By the way, did you see
Kevin Durant?
Did you see Giannis at the free throw line the other night?
No.
Versus Philly? 3 for 9.
3 for 9. But today I think he came back today. I don't know what he's at now. He was 8 for 10 at one point, but they got blasted by
Good.
By Atlanta. I think he bounced back today. Let me just double check it. But which is a good sign that he wanted to get back there, right, bro? That's always. He was 8 for 10 today, bro. So he's bounced back.
He always wants. That's the thing about him. He may not shoot well from it.
Yeah,
but he always doesn't mind getting there, and he's not afraid of it.
That's a skill in itself. Like, you have a
Yes.
take it from me. I've had nights where I've gone 0 for 5, 1 for 6. You're almost like, oh shit, like how's it going to feel today, And he's one of those guys. It's like, no, I'm getting straight on your head, trying to dunk on you, put me in the line. So,
yes,
very commendable, and useful or useless on that stat, pro.
That's useful. I think that was pretty interesting with the 70% in games and things like that, and the players in which have done it. Obviously, Dwight Howard was like, I think we would have both guessed it, but with Durant, I just sort of, I didn't just didn't have him on the mind. What do you think on that, Bogues?
Yeah, useful. I think it's very impressive. I mean, shoot 70%, mainly the Kevin Durant part of it. Like the other guys, cool, but like Kevin Durant, I just think he takes a lot of tough shots. You look at the difficulty of the shots that he takes and makes on a nightly basis, you wouldn't think he'd be up there. You think he'd be a guy that, he's always around the 40s, 50s because he takes some bad ones, but he makes those bad ones look easy, which is impressive. So good for KD, and Phoenix look like they're doing decently with having him at the helm. NBL, really close weekend, pro. I know you probably didn't follow it too much, but a lot going on, a lot of news. The Kings not looking good, pro. Another bad performance by them. DJ Hogue's first game back from injury, so blood on him. But going up to Cairns and losing to a short-handed Cairns Taipans, might I add. They lost their point guard at halftime after a heavy fall and still lost. I think just some issues with energy and coming out with a burst at times. It just feels like, obviously being part of the ownership group, feels like at times just we're a very talented roster and we just think, hey, we're going to get there eventually because we're talented. But in this league, you can't fall behind the pace for too long because there's only 28 games and then all of a sudden you can find yourself in one of those playing spots which you don't want to be in. So they're currently sitting 4th, but Tasmania the week before, Cairns this past week, 2 grind teams that guard, they're long, they play, they make you beat them, they're not going to beat themselves, we've struggled with. So a lot of improving to go for the Sydney Kings. Illawarra still won at home versus Cairns the game before. Kansas game before the Kings was against Illawarra down there. Cairns should have won that game. Tyler Harvey hits a game winner, almost a walk-off 3 to win the game, which was an impressive game. Adelaide win in New Zealand, big win for them. They go over there. DJ Vasiljevic has been huge for them, so a great addition to them. To Adelaide, he's really come in and given them a 3-point threat and some scoring. Melbourne looking very good. They go 2-0 versus Tasmania and Illawarra. They're top of the table by 5. Doesn't look like anyone's going to catch them towards the end of the season. Brisbane, they're probably their best weekend in recent memory. 2-0. They win in Perth, which isn't easy to do no matter how bad Perth are. It's always hard to win over there. Then they come home and beat Tasmania at home. So very, very good. No Aaron Baines. I think he's back next week. We'll be interested to see what Brisbane do. The fact that they go 2-0, that one of their best weekends in the last probably 4 or 5 years. Do they start Aaron Baines or do they keep the roster as is? I think there's a chance that they bring him off the bench and keep things flowing as is. Rocco's Zakarski's also got some minutes with Baines out, so what do they do with him? So a lot of questions there, but I think that they're going to have to make that tough decision. Tasmania go 0-2. I'm putting that down to my curse. That's my curse for saying that they were championship favourites last week, pro. So put that down as the bogey curse. They go 0-2. Southeast Melbourne go 1-0 versus New Zealand. And New Zealand go 0-2 on the weekend to go dead last in the NBL. I had them in my top 4. I thought they'd at least be solid. Some injuries there to deal with. One of the guys has broken their ankle. One of their imports, Cheatham, I think it is. So they got some roster filling to do. But moving on, I mean, the Perth Wildcats, something I want to discuss, pro, because they're in all sorts at the moment. They got a second year coach in John Riley. Fans are asking for his head. Apparently they were booing 6 minutes into the game against Brisbane on their home floor. They're a very passionate fan base that have had a lot of success for the last 20 years. Doesn't seem like they're handling losing too well, Pro. They don't know how to handle. They've never. Well, what is this losing thing? We're not familiar with this, and they're really struggling with it. Apparently, in the NBL Pro, a lot of teams have post-game functions where the coach goes and speaks. Fans booed the coach there, and Bryce Cotton is having one of his worst seasons in memory. He's an elite import, one of the best of all time, but not fitting in well. He's shooting 29% from the field on the season. Just can't get it going. And my take on this, people have asked me, is why? What do you think is going on? I don't think it's as easy to blame the coach. Look, the coach hasn't been great, and he'll tell you the same thing. He needs to make some adjustments at times, find different rotations, find something different. The roster constructed isn't great in my opinion. And the reason why I think Bryce is shooting a poor percentage, I think he struggles to play with other very talented players that are offensive minded. Why? Because he's a mass shooting guy. He's I can't say mass shooting. He's a guy that likes to shoot a lot.
We get you. We get it.
Yeah, likes to shoot a lot. He's a James Harden in Houston type. So you look historically when Bryce Cotton has played his best basketball, Mitch Norton, Damian Martin, two guards that are not going to shoot the ball unless you really low shot clock playing off them, they might hoist one up. They're going to do everything they can to facilitate for Bryce. They're going to try to, how can we get him open? What can we do? Set good screens, handoff actions. We're not going to look for our own shot. They now have young guys in Usher, the Webster brothers, guys that are, when they get the ball, they're looking for their shot first. So they're not straight away looking for Bryce, right? So Bryce is, with those squads 3-4 years ago, Bryce had many games where he started 1 for 7, 1 for 8, 2 for 10. And in the fourth quarter, he'd be 7 for 7. He'd find himself and then bang, they'd win the game. He's not getting that opportunity as much now because he's got other talented players around him. So I think a part of this is I think Bryce is struggling to play with other very good players. He's not a role player. He's a guy that needs the ball. And when he has bad shooting nights or seasons, he needs to find his way out of that by getting more shots. Now you don't have Damian Martin, Mitch Norton, those guys that are happy to give up their shots to continue to find you. So I think that's been a huge issue. They have a lot of offensive-minded guys. They don't have guys that are going to play a role, and that's part of the, how you've constructed the roster. You've got a lot of talent. I look at Perth, and I think they're somewhat the Sydney Kings model of old. Long before I got there, where the Sydney Kings would just look for a name, hottest free agent of the last season, let's pay him the money and bring him in. That was never a Perth Wildcats thing. They always would bring in specific players under Trevor Gleeson. He's going to play this role. He's tough in this area. He does this. He's not overly talented, but he's going to bring what we need. Whereas I feel like the last couple of seasons, they've started to look at who can we pay that's the biggest talent. Let's bring them in. Hasn't fit well, and it's hurt Bryce most. And there's a whole lot of issues going on over there in Perth. Like I said, they're calling for the coach and blah, blah, blah. I think it's still too early for that. People out there need to realize the first championship under Chase Buford, we were 3-6. Sydney Kings were 3-6 at that point, right? They were struggling. The people were like, what's going on? And ended up winning a championship. So sometimes some patience is needed, but I don't see this correcting itself quickly because I just don't think the roster's good. And to top that all off, you then have Bryce Cotton's wife going on social media and basically calling out the coach.
Never a good thing.
Subtly, the quote, apparently a closed Perth Wildcats group chat, but quote, when there's no system within the team and the players don't have clear roles, not one player has been reliable at the job they are meant to do, it's pretty hard to thrive when you're the most heavily scouted player in the league, which is Bryce Cotton. But that doesn't help things. 2 days before that, Bryce, put the blame on himself at a press conference and said it starts and ends with me. 2 days later, that comes out. That's not a good thing either. So a lot of turmoil in Perth, but just my thoughts. People have asked, what do I think is going on over there? I think they're still a very proud club, a great fan base that's passionate, but I think that's the reason. They just don't have the right role players around, and I think Bryce struggles with other star players that can kind of be near to what he is and deferring at times because he needs those shots to play his way out of slumps. And right now, at the end of the day, John really can't make shots for Bryce Cotton. John really, the head coach, can't get him to shoot better than 29% until he does. So I think Bryce will find it eventually. He's that good of a player. But to solely blame one person for their demise right now is a bit harsh. I'll give it another 5 or 10 games and then see where they sit. But bit of turmoil out there in Perth, bro.
Bogues, I think you hit it right on the head when you're constructing the team. And it's not an 82-game season where even if you bring in all these guys, you have a long time to sort of figure things out. I think, with 28 games, and you know how international teams are, EuroLeague teams and things are constructed. They're not constructed on a bunch of guys that want to take shots. It's, you get that one player or two players, and then everybody else is just sort of role guys. And if you have a situation where everybody wants to take shots, it's a normal thing trying to just sign players versus build a team. And I think it's a tough way to build a team if you have a lot of guys that need the ball in their hand and they need shots. I think you have to have a situation where you have a lot of these players that screen well, make open shots, but don't really need the ball in their hands constantly. And then when you start getting turmoil of family members start, going on social media, I think it adds to it. I think there's a lot of pressure on people to perform. And I think when you have weak links in this that either start popping off in the media or popping off in social media, on top of things, they've got a very short window to get this thing right. And I think that by blaming one person or blaming a system or whatever, I think you got to figure things out and just sort of get together and say, look, this is a pecking order of things. This is where we need it. And these, some players the problem is you should have had these conversations probably a month ago or 6 weeks ago, not having these conversations in November about like roles. I think right off the bat, you need to sort of set this thing up. But Bogues, the coach, you said second year. Where's he from? Australian guy? Is he
Australian NBL? He'd be Australian NBL legend, you'd call him. It was a really good NBL player back in the day. Was coaching over in the collegiate system over there in the US for a number of years, and then he was a little bit with supposed to be with the Boomers for the 21 Olympics, and then right at that point he got the head coaching job of Perth. So they said, look, we want you to stay back and not go to Olympics and start helping with building the club. So he's a basketball junkie. This guy's like absolute, but loves the game. We'll talk at 24/7, and it's just about figuring things out. Has he done a great job? No, but he'll tell you the same thing. He'll say, look, I need to do a better job with getting us to win games. He judged on wins and losses, but I think, when you look at that roster, they just, it's a big difference from what they were in the past for as far as Bryce's performance. But you've got a lot of young go-getters. I think something that wasn't great was Usher scoring 35 in the first game. He's one of their younger imports they've brought in from overseas. But he comes in and scores 35 opening night, thinking, "Oh, the NBL's this is easy, this is light work," and then he's been pretty bad since then. And you have a bunch of other young guys, even Sa's a next star, but he's trying to prove himself and not so much doesn't seem like a stat chasing player, but he wants to play, he wants to create and show what he can do. And then you got the Webster brothers who are both, Corey especially is an offensive gunner. That's what he does, and he's done a pretty good job of that. But that's why there's some frustrations with Bryce's performance, I think, from him probably not getting as much touches as he used to under those guys. But yeah, it's never a good thing when you have wives or spouses, and thank God my wife doesn't know shit about basketball, nor does she want to. But, she knew that, she's not on social media neither, God bless her, which is great. But she never would have gone on social media regardless of anything. And I think there's a line there, and I think family members going on social media and calling out coaches and GMs, I think it's a no-go for me personally. That's the way I stand on it. I think there's nothing good that can come out of it. And it's obviously coming from the player. So then just man up and say it yourself. Like if you've got something to say, don't tell it to your wife or your brother or your uncle and then have that posted. Just say it yourself, or don't say anything at all. So I'm kind of against it in your book as well, of like, nothing good comes from it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. But, the NBL season is short, but it's not the end of the world for them. They are sitting towards the bottom of the ladder, but you go on a 3-4 game win streak and you're back in the mix. And especially with the way the playing works now, where it's top 6, you never know. But it's been interesting. And look, every NBL team's had some turmoil already this season for the most part. Bar Melbourne United, Delhi's out with concussion, so they're dealing with some injuries. But most teams have had these ups and downs, and I think it's going to be one of the closest years in the NBL that we've seen. I don't think it's just going to be an outright pencil someone in to win it. Melbourne are the clear favourites and playing very good basketball right now. Very good mix of youth and veteran leadership, and Huck Porty's playing really well, is projected to go in the NBA draft next season. But it's going to be a real close season for us, Pro. So I think that it'd be very, very fun to watch.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think the league will be good. I think teams sometimes got to figure themselves out, but I think it'll be a pretty interesting deal for sure.
Agree. All right. Fact or fake news? I got one for you, Pro. Before you give me yours. Out of the 6 undefeated teams in the NBA, one of them will win a championship. That is undefeated teams as of current, Pro: Indiana Pacers, Boston Celtics, Orlando Magic, Denver Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans. They're the only undefeated teams left. An NBA champion will come from one of those undefeated teams, Pro. Fact or fake news?
I'm going to say fact.
So Boston or Denver it is. Of course. Boston or Denver?
Yeah. This changes weekly with me. I think last week I had Phoenix winning it. I hate this almost as much
just
as I
out of
hate
those
All-Star
6.
games.
Out of those 6, yeah.
No, I'm saying, like, I had Phoenix. They lost the game already. Now I'm going against it. I say fact. I think Denver is going to win it, to be honest with you, but I say fact.
I'm going to take the field. I'm going to go fake news. Just take the field. I did pick Boston. To win it, but I'm going to just take the field just because I got better odds, bro. not that the other,
no doubt about it.
Not that there's 26 teams that are viable. There's only probably another 2 or 3 outside of it. But I do like Phoenix. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just going to go with controversial pick just to go against you. But I think, I think Denver's playing really well. They've actually impressed me a little bit. I thought they'd have a bit of a championship hangover. I think losing Bruce Brown was big, but they've not missed a beat. And Jokic is in contention for an MVP again. Yeah,
and like we're talking about the young guys are going to have to play a lot of minutes. Brown's obviously someone who people talk about, but another guy that I mentioned in the past that I've actually studied pretty deeply in the last week or so is Peyton Watson. He's a second-year guy out of UCLA. He's like a sort of a poor man's Dorian Finney-Smith. He's like 6'8", long arm defender. Okay shooter, but more of like an off-ball player defender. He had 17 today for them. And he's one of those guys who didn't play any minutes basically all G League last year. I thought that he should have been, they should have sort of leveled him up slowly, but he's going to be thrown in the fire. But I think, again, I do think that at first it's a little bit of a shell shock deal, but I think going forward, when those guys start playing heavy minutes compared to what they're used to be playing, it's going to be a beneficial thing. They're going to get better. So, I mean, you got everybody good intact. You did lose Green and Brown, but these other young guys are coming on pretty strong. I know it's only 3 games in, but yeah, I think that think Denver's going to be tough.
Yeah, I agree. They're playing really well. But yeah, I'll go fake news. You go fact. What do you got for us?
I got 2. First one, Chicago. There's going to be another catastrophic event. Could be a coach firing, could be player revolt, or it could be another players only meeting in the next, until the end of the season. One of those 3 things are going to happen. Fact or fake news?
Oh, fact. They're going to have another players only meeting. That's a box tick. Yeah. Is it to the point where something catastrophic where they try to get together and who was that team? Was that Detroit a couple of seasons? Yeah, it was like 8 years ago. That
was Detroit with Charlie Villanueva, because I remember talking to Charlie V about it.
Yeah. Who was the coach? Was it?
The coach was a white dude.
Yeah. I forgot his name, but they basically orchestrated a boycott of shoot around, but then half the guys still showed up.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen happen. Like, you don't do that. I would rather, and I'm not a big fan of this either, but I'd rather just all go to do what LeBron and those guys tried to do with Spoelstra, like 20 games into the season in Miami. Just go to the GM and say, look, he's got to go. And I'm not a fan of that by any stretch, but I respect that a lot more than like, that's some third grade shit. Like not like player revolt. We player revolting. Like you may not like the coach, but you're still a professional. But again, here we are with players not showing. They're doing their own boycotts, like one player at a time boycott. We're not doing team stuff. But a player doesn't like a team or a coach, they just sit out. They go away
the
from
Bulls.
the team,
Look,
but
the Bulls have some veterans that are, Drummond. You never know. He's still trying to play to stay in the league, so I doubt he. But Levine can be a bit of a problem from that front, from what we hear. Caruso's pretty solid. DeRozan, you don't really hear a whole lot of negative stuff around him, but he seems like a guy that would keep pretty quiet on stuff. But, Vucevic can get frustrated with no touches. And they have a bunch of young guys, Kobe Bryant, Patrick Williams, that are trying to find their way. So I don't know. I don't think it goes boycott.
It's probably one of the other two. It's probably one of the other two. It's probably either coach.
I think they're...
Because it's not...
But what are their aspirations? Do they really think they're like a... if you're the GM or you're a fan of the Bulls, like, do you really think you're a top 6 team in the East, like with this roster?
No, I do think that from top to bottom, organizations are usually delusional about where they are. The GM is blaming the coach if they're not doing well, of course, not always. But if they're not doing well, the GM is blaming the coach. Coach is, blaming the GM and the players they brought in and things. And to be honest, I think Billy Donovan's a good coach. I think on paper what they did before when they brought in Ball, DeRozan, Vucevic, I thought they were all good moves. Patrick Williams didn't really, hasn't really panned out. Kobe White really hasn't panned out. Levine's been a guy who could score points. Hasn't really been a winner yet in his career, but he's been putting up points. Now with Ball being out, and it's just not a great fit. I think that right now, you know how it is, Bogues, in the NBA. Players blame coaches blame players and GM usually blames coach. It's all, it's all who can get to the guy first, who can get to the owner first, and sort of shed all this blame everywhere else. And it becomes, and that's why like good organizations like the Heat, like the Spurs, like Golden State, Boston to a certain degree, like everybody stays together on this through thick and thin, and it gets thin a lot, way more than it gets thick. And you got to stick together on this stuff. But when you start having weak links and people start blaming and things, that's where it goes bad. I mean, I think the only thing they could do right now is deal Vucevic for whatever you can deal him for, deal DeRozan for whatever you deal him for. Maybe you revolve this team around Levine. I don't know. I don't think Levine's that kind of guy. I think he needs to be your second or third best player, for him to be really good. But I don't think this roster, I don't think the players are going anywhere. I think they gotta reshuffle the deck, to be honest. I don't think there's really a move out there they can make to really get them better.
Yeah, I agree. And then the Ball thing, like, we had the off-season stuff saying he's going to be right, and he's still not there. That's a big out for them, especially when they constructed the roster. They were looking at more defensive-minded, grindy kind of, on the defensive end, they'd have enough to kind of be the opposite of not having as much offensively, right? You could balance it out a little bit, Caruso and these kind of guys, but we haven't really seen that. And they, I think they're close to a blow. I mean, Vucevic could be a really good piece for someone. I'm not sure what his contract situation is, but is he contracted long term? Could he be a buyout candidate?
I got it right here, Bogues. So Vucevic is going to be 18.5 this year, 20 million next year, 21.4 or 21.5 in 25, 26. So I mean, not a bad contract if you're thinking about it, right around 20 million, right around 20 million a year for a guy who basically puts up 17 and 11 and shoots 35 from the three. It's not too bad. Not a bad contract.
All guaranteed,
it's not something
though.
like Harden where
they're all guaranteed, no options.
It's not making 35. What's up?
No options, all guaranteed. And I thought he'd be towards the tail end of it where someone could, maybe he's got 1 year left after this season. Someone can bring him in, but no.
Didn't they? I think they just extended him, to be honest.
I didn't see. I missed that.
If I'm not.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, he could be.
just fit.
I'm thinking of Porzingis not as high as Porzingis, but that kind of goes to a team that's right there, and then maybe puts them over the top. Who knows? But they got some valuable pieces, but on big contracts. I think they got to go. I kind of don't know why they went that route with DeRozan and whatnot, but they thought it was going to work. I thought, at best it's getting you an 8-7 seed, maybe a 6 seed. They had a great run at one point in the season last season. They just absolutely plateaued. But like long-term wise, you're just there. You're in the mix, but you're not. No one's ever going to be like, oh, they're one or two pieces away from a championship. No way. So, but they, back to your question, fact, they're going to have another bit of turmoil this season.
Yeah, they will. They will. All right, last one, Bogues. Okay, so let's just talk about the Harden trade for a second. And I'm tired of fucking talking about it, to be honest with you, but we'll put it in a fact and fake news question. So say he's going to go to the Clippers. The deal is either, let's just say it's going to be Terrence Mann and Norman Powell. Okay? And whatever picks. I don't care what the picks. The Philadelphia 76ers will win more games with keeping James Harden into their lineup going forward just for a whole season versus making the trade for Terrence Mann and Norman Powell for James Harden. Fact or fake news?
Fake news, just because I think Harden's, how committed is he going to be if he plays? That's my concern.
Say let's just say in this fictitious world that he's all in. He's like, all right, fuck it, which he won't be. But if he's in a perfect world, in a vacuum, they play in the bubble again for a whole season, and like no distraction, you stay in at Disney, all that. 1 year, what do they win more games with? They win more games with James Harden in the lineup or without it?
For Mann and Powell, that's a tough one because I think Maxey is starting to come into his own. But
exactly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a real tough one because. Yeah, I mean, if Harden's committed, and I don't think he was that committed last season, he was kind of up and down like a yo-yo, but if it's Harden, fully committed Harden, ready to go, locked in, at least not a cone on defense, and high-level offense, then I would say that Philly would do better. But yeah, on the mental makeup and that, if you put that asterisk in, I would say fact, Philly would win more games, but without that, I like they got insurance policies, and I think Philly's constructed his roster in a way that I think they can definitely get some stuff back that'll be helpful for them. But they need to get on with it too. Like I don't know if you watched the Philly game against Milwaukee. I watched portions of it, but Embiid was kind of, I don't know what the hell he was doing in different portions of that game. He threw this turnover late game, like he tried to do a one-handed tip pass at the three. Defensively, he was not engaged at all, letting Lopez just roam on the three and hit big threes. It just looked like he was kind of out there. Got his numbers, put up stats, but I mean, there's every chance that this goes poorly and they don't get back a good return and win games. Does he ask out at some point? Like does he just say, you know what, like this shit's getting old for me? Even though I think it's his team now. Like there's no Ben Simmons to say, hey, Ben's fault. Hey, it's James's fault. Like this is his team, and he's supposed to be the MVP of last season, right? So, and you look at the growth of Jokic. You hate to compare it to Jokic, but Jokic going from that season where they didn't win anything, it was MVP, to where he jumped that next off season to come back even better and win it again, and they go through that whole thing, and then doesn't win the championship that season, then comes back and finally wins it. I don't see that so far with Embiid. Like, do you see him win an MVP in the next 2 seasons after an MVP bout? No, but I think a lot of that, I'm just concerned about Philly watching that. I think they'll be good still, but their best players kind of not always locked in.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid's a concern with that for sure. I mean, a guy who's going to put up numbers, but he put up like 33 and 10 last year. I mean, he always puts up numbers. He always finds a way, but there's always some type of a non-serious part of it, not for a full course of a game, but so for some sometimes in minutes, he does play a little weird and strange. I do think, I say fake news. I say they're going to win more games without Harden. I like where Maxey is as far as where his game's going. And I like I like having guys that don't necessarily need the ball in their hands all the time. If you can get Norman Powell, you can get Terrence Mann, you could spread this talent out. It makes you a deep team. You know, look, Beverly's good on backup minutes. You got you got Melton, you got Oubre, you know, guys that could sort of score. You got Tobias Harris. Then you throw in Norman Powell and Mann. And then obviously with the Embiid deal, I do worry about Embiid. I think he's going to ask out. That's just sort of the merry-go-round that goes around the NBA, Bogues, right? You get drafted, you sign your second deal. A year or two into your second deal, you're like, you know, now Embiid's been there for obviously a lot longer than that. But I think it's just where the NBA society is as far as moving. But I do think that I like their team. I did watch the Milwaukee game, and I watched a little bit of their second game. I didn't watch their game today, but I do like them because the ball moves. Like, that ball does move. Now, when it gets to Embiid, it doesn't really move. But Maxey wants to move it. He can score. He's exciting. He gives you some energy that Harden doesn't give. I don't think he's got the basketball IQ Harden's got. Obviously, he's not as older, experienced. But he doesn't have the passing that Harden has. But he can really score pick and roll, isolation. He can make shots. You know, PJ Tucker's getting up there, so having Norman Powell there, having Terrence Mann there could give him some break. It sort of takes him off his shoulders and his plate. I just think that they're going to be deeper. Oubre had a huge night his first night. I think he had something like 20 plus. He was a little cold today, but I just think if you add more pieces in, look, Max is your player going forward.
Is it the Clippers reportedly saying no?
What's up?
Who's saying no to that? Who's reportedly saying no to that deal? Is it the Clippers or Philly?
Clippers are saying no right now, but
because they want Mann, right?
They want to keep
Mann.
Yeah, they want to keep Mann.
Yeah,
they want to keep Mann. So even if Mann isn't in the deal, you get Norman Powell and somebody else. It's probably going to be Covington if I had to guess. If it's not going to be Mann, I think Norman Powell's huge there because he's just another guy. He could score. You could depend on him. He doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. He can score. I think he's been there before anyway, if I'm not mistaken.
He has.
I like him.
No, that's Covington.
Yeah.
Covington's been there before.
I know Covington's been there. I thought Norman Powell was there. My mistake.
Philly.
But
Toronto, I think.
Yeah, Toronto, you're right. I do think that he's a good player. I like where he's at. I think that they need to make a move. And look, if you're going to go forward with Maxey, he's going to be your player, and he's your plan B if Embiid's going to leave. Now it's Maxey. You don't have to worry about this. They need to make a move with this Harden thing because, like you said, he's not going to be locked in. It's over with that. That's done. Why keep him around? It's not really fair to Nick Nurse. He's got to answer these questions. He's the only one answering questions about, what's James' status. This got to be Daryl Morey and Elton Brand. Like, those guys got to come to the forefront. And I know there's not a lot of information to be had, but the head coach really can't be. I mean, I know he's the easiest guy to get to, but like as far as like answering these questions every day, I think sometimes it's pointless. It just. But I do think they'll win more games if they have another guy going forward and making a move versus just having him in the lineup.
Okay, but then you got also James fitting in with the Clippers. Like, who goes to Russ goes to the bench? Is James coming off the bench? Like, how do you fit all that in? You know what I mean? There's going to be someone's going to come off the bench there. So you'd probably think Russ would get moved, right? And they'd start James at the 1, or do they keep him as a 6-man role?
Man, I don't know. I mean,
well, Kawhi's playing the 4 at the moment, right? On paper, right?
Yeah, and you said it too, Bogues. Like, I don't know. Like you said, like the role, you don't want to be Carmelo Anthony, not taking a role or having this sort of, perception around you as a player. It's like your credit rating, right? As a player, just having a bad.
You're not rolling into the Clippers saying like, hey, I want all the ball usage. We've got Paul George and Kawhi, so like, what do you want us to do, dude?
And also, he's put up numbers in the playoffs, but he hasn't really been dominating in the playoffs. Really. He's been okay. But I think in the playoffs, you do need that other guy. You got Leonard there. You got the players you got there, Paul George and Kawhi. You need that other guy that when they shut those guys down, and teams game plan. You need that other guy that could really explode, and he could be it. I know he had a very, the last couple playoffs he's been in, it hasn't been
Up and
great.
down. Yep.
So yeah, he's been very sporadic with that. I don't know, man. I mean, you just said it with the NBL. Like sometimes you get addicted to bringing in names, and maybe they think the Clippers think that like that's their move that brings them over the top to win a championship. And I think that the Clippers, constructed as they are right now, could win a championship if they're healthy and that they stop the stuff that they've been doing in the past with, resting guys. Obviously, the NBA's put in those rules, but I don't think they need to make this move. But sometimes you get addicted to it. We got to make this move at the deadline. We got to do this. It will put us over the edge. I'll be honest with you, Bogues. A lot of these moves that are made at the deadline, or these like guys that are like put on free agency, how they get cut and these teams pick them up for the playoffs. It never tends to work. The only thing that it worked is when they traded for Kawhi in the offseason going into that championship year. They didn't acquire him at the trade deadline. It's a lot of things that you got to put in, like to get acclimated with your team in a small amount of time. So sometimes when like, I got to make this trade, we got to make this trade, we got to make this move. Sometimes it's better just to stay pat, and the trade that you don't make, sometimes a lot of times it's better than the trade that you do make, So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It will be. Yeah, no, I'm interested to see, the Clippers as a dark horse pick, just based on, with some of the sports betting stuff here, just based on the load management rule. I like them as well. If they actually played 70, 65, 70 plus, they'll be in the mix and go on for the playoffs. So watch that space. Anyway, Pro, next week off. We'll give you the week off, man. We're going to go to every 2 weeks from now on, just to space it out a little bit more. Some weeks are quiet, some weeks aren't, and we'll get more basketball news in a fortnight, Pro.
All right, great. So we'll see you guys at Victor Wembanyama's 30th birthday, guys. So, next time we get on, we'll be good.
My dark horse pick for Defensive Player of the Year, it's a very slight chance, but he started off well. He's had a couple of 2 blocks, 2 steals, some deflections. Like he's.
And I told you, Brian Scalabrine was listening to the radio the other day. I listen to their show every day, him and Frank Isola on Sirius Radio. And he shouted you out. You're the one guy that said the Clippers were going to finish 10th. You had them at 10th, Bogues?
The Lakers, yeah.
You had them at 10th?
I also had Memphis at, I think, 4 because of the Ja Morant thing. I kind of bombed on that. I forgot it was 25 games. But, I don't like the Lakers. I don't like the way they play. They don't move the ball. Like it's very 90s-ish. They kind of just dribble it up and throw it AD or LeBron, and it's like LeBron gets out in the open floor a little bit, but I just don't like it. And then they just hot potato that thing, and someone has to make a play. They don't really. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. They'll probably be above 10, but I just thought I'd be a bit controversial because I'm not a fan of them. Appreciate Scalabrine calling me out for it, which is good.
Yeah, it's great. When I told you, the first thing was, you were like, was he fucking with me, or was he like, was he going at me? I go, no. He was actually like, because it's unbelievable that you would think that the Lakers, now look, they made that run, Western Conference Finals, all that, but like they had a little luck with that too. But to say they're going to win it based on the moves they made.
No, they don't win it.
What moves did they make that like were this great move? Like I thought their moves they made at the trade deadline were great last year with Vanderbilt and whatever, and making the moves they made. They got off of Westbrook, but like Christian Wood, getting I'm not really a huge fan of Vincent, but like Torian Prince is okay. I don't know. I think the West is packed.
What do they do? What is their when you say Lakers basketball right now, what do they do? Like, the Warriors are running gun, they're going to push the ball, they're going to look for threes, a lot of the Celtics are going to, what do the Lakers do? That's what I look at. I'm like, what do they do? I feel like Russell gets it into shot clocks a lot and has to make a play. LeBron obviously is pushing in transition, and then AD, when he has a night, they've got a chance, but it's not consistent. So, and then Vincent was a decent pickup, but who knows? I think he flourished in that Miami system. So I don't know. I just don't have him high. I think the West is super deep. I think you look at what Dallas is doing. It's early, but Dallas, New Orleans are playing good basketball right now. So even the Spurs, like they're going to be a bottom 4 team, we think, but they're even competitive, man. Like they push Dallas to the edge, probably should have won that game in hindsight. So there's a lot going on, and I just think the West is super deep. If they were out East, different story. But you know, everyone always has the Lakers top 4, top 5, especially with all the ESPN stuff and all that kind of stuff. LeBron's on the team, but LeBron is almost 40. You know, AD hasn't played a lot of games. I factored it on that as well. I'm like, LeBron's probably going to pick up a little soft tissue injury. AD is definitely going to have some sort of, you know, knee to knee, and he's going to miss 10 games here or there. And you know, we had him at one point almost falling out of the 10 last season. Remember, like they were in all sorts, and then they made a little run and got respectable to 7. You know, they could have been out again. So I'm not high on them. But
I had him where you have him this year. I had him last year. I had him at like 10, 11 last year, and it's give it to LeBron and give it to AD and hope things happen. D'Angelo Russell is on his own page. Guy just jacks up shots. I think Austin Reeves is tremendously overrated as far as where they really view him. He does help them. Look, he's a second round pick or an undrafted player. I forgot, but like
he just plays hard. You know, he plays hard on a team that doesn't have guys that play that hard. That's why I think he looks like he's a good player, but I think he looks even better because he's guarding.
He does play hard.
He gets in the paint, he's falling over, whereas a lot of their guys aren't going to do that. They're just kind of like, I get to my spot, get to my jumper, like it's just kind of more cruise control. So then you have one guy on their team like, holy shit, this guy's flying all around the place. It looks like he's like way better than he is, in my opinion.
I do have both LeBron and AD on my fantasy team. How about this, Bogues? So last week I'm doing the draft and I get fucked by Yahoo every year. Like they're like pressing the draft button sometimes gets stuck. So like, and a lot of times you got to go into the last second of who you want to draft. So it's like early round, first pick. I picked Durant, so I'm good there. Second pick comes around and AD's there and I want Booker. So the fucking thing gets stuck. I want Booker. I'm trying to draft. And what happens is they just go by the ranking of how they rank them. So AD was the next guy ranked, and I'm trying to fucking draft. I'm trying to draft somebody else, and he fucking goes there. I'm trying to draft Booker, and he fucking draft AD. And then I'm trying to draft Fox, and fucking they draft LeBron for me. So going to the 9th round. Now, I've drafted Harrison Barnes 8 straight drafts. 8 straight drafts I drafted Harrison. And I always take a video of me drafting him and send it to him. So this year I'm trying to like be funny and doing it, and I can't get it again, the fucking draft button. So they give me Horford. I send it to him and he starts laughing. And he scores 33 on the first night.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I said, you're welcome for the motivation, motherfucker. But fucking HB, fuck. But that's all I got,
man.
folks.
All good. We'll see you next 2 weeks. You Americans say bi-weekly. We say fortnight. So we'll see you in a fortnight.
I'll see you in a fortnight.